So by the end of this video, you're going to learn what are components, how to create a component in React, and how to import and export components. So what are components in React, really? Well, components, brother, are the basic building block of any React application. So whenever you're making a website or web app, I should say, in React, you're creating components. And for this, I went to the React documentation to see their website. Just kidding. Just to see, to show you. For example, in this page, this could be one component. Every UI element that you make is a component, can be component. For example, this navbar can be one component. This title here and this title also can be one component. This can be one component as well. And those components, you make them usually one component per file. And in our example application, this file is one component, and it only has, with the power of JSX that we learned in the previous video. And these components are basically just JavaScript functions, and you can do that in React. I mean in JSX, JavaScript function that return HTML, and this HTML of course gets transcompiled with Babel, I think, and gets rendered to the page, and you get these beautiful pages made up of beautiful components. And so by creating so many components, I mean, let's just first ask you a question. So you have one component here, but how do you add another one? I said that we make components, multiple components on a single website. So how you add component is, of course, you create another file, and here I have created one. We're going to see how you create them later, but basically you can nest in export components. You create another components, export them there, and then import them here in your main component, which we call also the root component. And to use this, you render them here in your main component. And here what you do is you create one component, and since you nest them, you nest your other component in your main one, you create what is called a component tree. So let's see how you can make super duper easy peasy component in React. And if I clear all these things up, and for whatever reason I have them here, weird, and I run this application, I'm going to run it just so you can see what we are working with right now. And by the way, to create a component, you just create a new file, and for that I'm going to go inside my source folder. Very important, source code, and here I want to create a brand new file, and I'm going to call it login.js. And this is a JavaScript file, so I guess we're calling it giving it an extension of .js. And here I want to add a function. Will basically be my component. I'm going to call it login because I'm going to create a login button, and it's going to return, that's right, a login button. And here I want to make a button element in HTML and just add a contents of login. And this is my application for now, and I don't see my login button yet, and I've created this component. But the thing is, to see it, I need to export this and then import in my main component. As I said previously, we're making basically a component tree. We have one component here, the main one, the app.js, and then we're nesting another component, the login component in our example, and we're making a component tree. So we're going to see that how we do that next. So now I'm going to show you how to export components and how to import components, because we're going to do, you need to do both of them to see your component and use components. And there are multiple ways to export components. First, I'm going to show you the default way, and the default way is just you say export, then default, that's right, and then the name of the component, which is login in our example. I don't think it works if you use a different name. Nah, probably shouldn't work. And now, since that's basically it, we've now exported this component, and to import it, we're going to go inside our main component, which is app component, and then I'm going to say import. That's right, so easy, huh? And then I'm going to say login, because this is, oh whoops, actually I should have mentioned this. Then you specify the name of what you would like to reference this component. So I want to say just login, because that's, or probably I should say login button. This will be more readable. And then I'm going to say from. And then inside this string, I want to specify the path, or in my file structure, of where my file is, the component basically. And I'm going to add a dot, since we're in this source folder. And from here, I just want to access my login file here, since they're in the in the same folder. English is hard for me. So now I've imported this component, but I'm not using it, and that's probably why that's why I'm getting this warning. And to use this component, you actually render them. You can render them inside this div just by saying, like we do with HTML elements. So say just login, oops, and then we're basically, when creating components, think of it like creating brand new HTML elements. And this is our HTML element, let's call it, or component. Oops, and I'm going to delete this. Oops, I should have said login button, sorry, because that's how we imported the component, and that's how we're going to reference it. So now I should see in my website that I have this root component text, and then guess what? That's right, login text, or login button. So if I go inside my website, boom, we got this login button here. And that's the first way you can export stuff. And the second one is, whoops, I messed the file. If you have, let's say, a login and a sign up button, then you will go here. I'm going to create now the sign up button. Basically that's the same as this one, but just going to call the function sign up. And notice here I name my function with an uppercase letter. It will not work with a lowercase letter for whatever stupid reason. And here I want to change the text, of course. And now I have, let's say I want to export both the login and sign up button. And you can only have one default export. And we can leave this here. But I'm also going to add another export, actually another button that I'm going to call original button. Original button. Oops. And here's my original button. And if I want to export now both of these, I use the let's call it original export, where you say just export, and then in this curly parentheses, you add in the name of what you want to export, basically your function names. So here I will add sign up, and if you want to export multiple things, stuff, whatever you call them, you separate them by this comma. And I add in my original button, and now we've successfully exported them. You'll see that that's true because I'm going to import them now. And importing them is a little bit different because we're using a different export tactic, but it's pretty much the same as exporting, because again we use the import and then curly brackets and then the name of those stuff we exported. So I'm going to say original button, and you can say comma and then say sign up, and again from the same file, login. And now I can use this. Actually, I'm going to first use this button. I'm going to do this to render this button, and then I will use, say, original button to render the original button. And when I go boom, actually we got it right. And now as you can see, we've successfully exported all of the buttons. These are the two main ways. You can use whatever you prefer. So if you enjoy videos like this one, make sure to subscribe here. Thank you so much for watching, and peace out.